Mic check, mic check, mic check. Okay, hello everyone. Hi, how are you? Thank you for participating in what is now the world's biggest climate action protest ever to take place. You're part of it. Well, first off, I'd like to thank the city for letting us be here and exercising our right to free speech and being excited and really being citizens of this great country. So right now, everybody, we are at a climate action rally. I'm standing on a stage built out of reclaimed construction site dumpster wood. I am surrounded by maple trees that have been watered with a gravity-fed, solar pump-powered amphibian aquaculture setup. So I think right now we've just about hit peak Asheville. I don't know. Is anybody drinking a kombucha while petting a shelter dog out there? Anybody? Okay, great. So I'd like to also thank my parents for being here from all the way from Kingsport, Tennessee, and they drove a Prius. Everybody, in carpool. So that's great. My name is Daniel DeWitt. I'm the events coordinator of the Climate Reality Project here in Western North Carolina. This group was founded by Al Gore back in 2006. And in March, a bunch of other Ashevilleans and I got to travel to Atlanta to go to his 40th Climate Action Conference. It was a remarkable experience filled with all kinds of dynamic speakers and really passionate people. And the Asheville table was lucky enough to be third row back during the 4-hour slideshow presentation that Al Gore put on. And it contained what you'd think. There were pictures of people chest high in flood water. There were graphs that went all the way up to the right and all the way back down. There were things on fire. You guys know what's up. You're here. And so after the conference, a group of us got together and decided to continue on with the effort. And we wanted to coordinate with Greta Thunberg's Climate Action Strike, which you are now part of here today. And so we chose a rally. Strikes are an effective form of protest, and we applaud everyone who took part in that, but it's not really something that's available to everyone. So we are happy that all of you could join us here this evening. And, when we were talking about what to make this theme, it's important to recognize the science. It's important to understand the statistics, but it's a little depressing. It's not a good theme for a rally. And so, this information that we take in, it's important, but it's also costly. It does psychological damage to us. It weighs down our spirits. And as we're weighed down, we're less capable of being strong. We're less capable of being effective. We're not able to set a good example. We're not able to be proud of ourselves. And when you might be feeling that, when you might be in that downward spiral, it can be isolating, and it could even maybe cause you to want to give up and walk away from the issue entirely. And I think we've all been there, but also, if we look around, I think we can see that we're not so alone, we're not so powerless. And so today, we want to say that no matter what you're good at doing, you can be good at that thing for a cool organization doing cool things. So what I want to do is introduce all of our partners, and you can learn exactly how you can put your specific skill set towards the effort in making climate action a priority for our culture here in America and around the world. So in order to introduce our speakers, I wanted to get you guys involved a little bit. I'm going to have them say who they are, what their organization is, one sentence about it, and then I'm going to say their name really fast, add yeah, and get you guys to say yeah right back to me. Everyone got this? Yeah! Okay. If you, yeah. I'm sorry, we could only use battery-powered equipment out here by the city, so we're doing the best we can. Thank you for listening closely. Can we get our first speaker up? Yeah.
Hello everybody, I'm so glad that you're here. My name is Sarah Benoit and I work with Community Roots for a local organization. And today, if you believe in the rights of nature, if you believe in ending the Duke monopoly on energy, and if you believe in going 100% renewable by 2030, and you vote in the city of Asheville, please sign our petition. We need 10,000 signatures to get our Climate Bill of Rights on our ballot in 2020 here in the city. We're wandering around all day today. Come talk to me. The earth has sustained all of us and given us life, and it's time for us to protect her.
Hello, my name is Natalie Isler. I'm a student at UNC Asheville, and I'm with UNCA Divestment. We are a group of students trying to get the school to divest from fossil fuels. If you're interested, please come and see us at our table. Thank you so much.
Hello, I'm Cora Chita-Alhanef, and I wrote this guide to climate justice and human rights. And we're going to be performing at 7:30, looking at consumer convenience culture and plastic addiction, one of the excerpts from this book. And we're over there, the books are on sale along with t-shirts and prayer flags. Again, it's about human rights and climate justice.
I'm Rob Myers, and I'm also performing with Kara, Zazu Dreams at 7:30, and it's about social permaculture, love, and creative waste living. All right.
Hi, I'm Morgan Marshall. I'm with the Student Environmental Center at UNC Asheville. We're a group of students who are trying hard to bring sustainable, equitable environmentalism to the masses.
Hi, I'm Vineet. I am part of Pachamama Alliance Asheville branch. We have an ambitious purpose to bring forth an environmentally sustainable, spiritually fulfilling, and socially just human presence on this planet. And we put on short events. Our next foundational workshops, 3 hours at Jubilee a week from tomorrow. So Jubilee would know about it, or you can contact us or see me.
Good afternoon. I'm Amanda Bryant with the Asheville Museum of Science, also known as AMUS. We serve our youth in all ages with environmental, sustainable, and STEM education. Please come visit us. We are right behind the monument down there on 43 Patton Avenue, and thank you for being here.
Hello everyone, my name is McNair Izzard. I'm with an organization called Share International, and our basic message is that due to a system based on competition and greed and extreme inequality, that this contributes to the degradation of the environment that we are having today, and the way forward is sharing the world's resources to create a more equitable world and turn the world in a new direction.
Hello everyone, I'm Yulia Schaefer with Energy Savers Network. We're addressing social justice and environmental issues, and we provide free energy efficiency upgrades to eligible homes with the help of volunteers. So please stop by our table over there and sign up for our volunteer network, because only together we can do this. Thank you.
Hey, I'm Steffi Rausch with Citizens
Citizens Climate Lobby. If you would like to support the first bipartisan bill ever to be introduced in Congress, please go over there and fill out a form. And if you're a business, you can go on to endorse at energyinnovationact.org.
Hello everybody, I'm Mayo Taylor. I'm with the Western North Carolina group of the Sierra Club. We've been advocating for the natural and human environment for a very long time now. Our table is back here by the turkeys, and we have a petition to get solar facilities on public buildings, and particularly public schools.
Hi, my name is Steve Wall. I'm here with the Western North Carolina Climate Action Coalition. We're showing a movie tomorrow night at Lake Junaluska, Guardians of Our Troubled Waters, which was done by the filmmaker David Weintraub. It's been seen. It's about how the Pigeon River, the French Broad River, Sweeten Creek, we can't let it happen. Back in 2004 happened again. Those you may remember, we had 3 hurricanes that fall, 22 inches of rain. And that's just a little echo of what's going to happen in the future. Canton had 7 feet of water. Sweeten Creek was wiped out. This movie is about the few people who rose up together and stopped the pollution of those waters. So tomorrow night at Lake Junaluska, 6:30, and I want to say as a veteran of the civil rights and Vietnam, anti-Vietnam movement, to see these young people doing this today, it's wonderful. It's the future for my children and for your children and all of you, so thank you.
My name is Mel. I'm co-president of Active Students for a Healthy Environment. We're an environmental activism group here at UNCA, which is right down the road. So if you want to learn more about us or get on our email list, come find me over at the table. Thank you.
I'm Susan Bean. I'm with Mountain True, your local grassroots advocacy nonprofit. And we fight for clean waters, resilient forests, and healthy communities across Western North Carolina.
Hello, I'm Jane Laping. I'm with the Creation Care Alliance of Western North Carolina, and we are a network of people of faith and congregations who have responded to the spiritual call to care for to care for God's creation for the health, integrity, and beauty.
Hey everybody, my name is Nancy Casey. I'm here with the Elijah Mitchell Audubon Society, the bird people. Unfortunately, climate change is the #1 threat to birds, and we believe at Audubon that if we act now for climate solutions, we're going to save the birds, all the other creatures of the earth, and all of us. So work with us. We're over on this table over here.
Hi everybody, my name is Catherine Long. I'm the director and lead teacher of Growing Wild Forest School, which is an all-outdoor, nonprofit nature connection preschool for kids ages 3 to 6. We talk about animal tracking, how to climb trees, how to use tools, how to use fire, and generally how to be part of the web of life rather than positioning ourselves above it. We are always looking for people who want to volunteer with us, organizations that want to partner with us, board members for our nonprofit, and any abundance anyone is willing to share. Please come find me over there, do a nature craft. Love to see you.
Hello, I'm Sandra Akistis, Director of Green Built Alliance, and we advance sustainability in the community through green building and sustainability, and we also have a carbon offset program to fund local energy efficiency and solar for schools. And we also run the Blue Horizons Project, which is about setting the course of clean energy by promoting solar energy and energy efficiency throughout the community.
Hello, my name is Emily Ostavine. I am a member of the Environmental and Social Justice crew at Warren Wilson College. We're in East Asheville. Clearly there's over 20 of us here today, so we do our best to get as many people out as possible for things such as this. So,
I'm Avram Freeman of the Canary Coalition. And the Canary Coalition this year has introduced 3 bills into the North Carolina General Assembly. The North Carolina version of the Green New Deal, the Efficient and Affordable Energy Rates Bill, and the North Carolina We the People Act to get the money out of politics. Thank you.
Thank you, Avram. Seriously, check out the Canary Coalition. They've done so much coverage over a dynamic, eclectic wealth of resources. So big shout out to Canary Coalition. If you want to follow up with people who actually know what they're talking about and covering social justice movement. This is Alina with the Soul and Soil Project, and I'm Amanda, her devotee. And we are an eco-cultural nonprofit in the area. We're dedicated to resiliency learning through regenerative agriculture, the arts, and addressing disaster relief, also with Amanda's other project. You can meet us at our table, and thank you very much. Just to tip on that, our other project is Organic Partners for Disaster Relief. We do hurricane disaster relief, and we're working with local regenerative organic farms to actually create preserved food to be able to give people who are in time of need, like the people in Houston right now. We are working towards helping people, and we've been doing that all the way since last year in North Carolina and the year before that in Florida. And last year in North Carolina, there were massive floods in Rocky Point, North Carolina, as the dams were opened in Raleigh. And we need to raise awareness that that water is coming down from our mountains. So it's up to us to prevent erosion here, because we're connected to the entire state, all the way to Mother Ocean. Thank you all for coming. I'm going to give Daniel back the mic.
Any more partners?
Hey everybody, I'm Wendy Owens, Extinction Rebellion, Asheville. How many people are familiar with Extinction Rebellion? We are trying to build this chapter in Asheville to be a massive chapter. I'm supposed to be in New York right now for climate action, but I wasn't able to make it, so I'm here at home. So if you're interested in joining Extinction Rebellion, come see me around here at this table. But we are dealing with some unprecedented issues, and like our young ambassador, Greta Thunberg, who is raising the vibration and awareness about climate change. She is amazing. When someone asked me who my hero was, I was like, I have a shero. Her name is Greta. And she is raising awareness about what we're doing to this planet, and we are idle no more. So we have a lot of work to do. When we say for the next 7 generations, we're talking about grandchildren, we're talking about these children, these ambassadors. When I look around, I'm just seeing all these beautiful souls that are going to be doing this work for the rest of their lives. And we're here to co-create a new paradigm of consciousness for sustainability, and it is time to resonate change. And Asheville, North Carolina is the place to do it. So if you want to get involved with Extinction Rebellion, or if you want to host us, we want to do more climate action. You can get online and you can find out information about an Extinction Rebellion climate change action going on in Atlanta, Georgia, and that's on the 27th. But isn't it beautiful that people are gathering around the world right now for healing the earth and bringing in earth consciousness? And on another level, Asheville's known as the city of light and frequency, so it's time to resonate change for the Gaia consciousness, to eliminate the greed grid and resonate the green grid. Thank you. Love and light.
Hello, my name is Lena Ruarquistas, and I'm the Director of Earth Path Education. And we do deep nature connection with our youth and wilderness rites of passage with young women. So we do a 10-year rites of passage program from the time they're 8 to 18, because we want to empower these young women to live their dreams for a healthy planet. So earthpatheducation.com, check us out, let's initiate our youth, and it's so much easier to protect once we connect.
Any more Raleigh partners? Look at all these great organizations that you can take part of. Can we just say thank you to everybody for being here? If you're having a hard time hearing, there's plenty of room up front. You can move in a little bit. Now, we're truly blessed to have our first guest here opening it up. Yona Frenchhawk is an ordained minister of Jubilee Community Church and is a recognized elder and full-blood member of the Eastern Band Cherokee. He's been connecting communities his whole life, and he has chosen to connect with us in our community here today. So can we please put our hands together for Yona Frenchhawk.
Thank you for being here. And number one, may I say that it's from a deep heart appreciation that I see all the colors of the rainbow being represented here. Because this is a prophecy of something that came long before this movement. This is something where you're standing on land, that this very mound you're standing on, have you ever noticed how all the roads lead uphill to here? You're standing on top of what was once the most sacred burial grounds of the Cherokee people before Buncombe County and Asheville ever came along. This was an energy point of connecting back to all the great things that we love, cherish, and protect. So let's move past the politics. For this moment, can we move past the stories we've been told? The histories that have been told to us. And then in this moment, because whenever Asheville was built into a town, look around you. Biltmore, the Vanderbilts, this Monument, the Masons. What was here before was sacred in the way that we're trying to call back now. Before the politics, before the rings, before all the acknowledgement of who you were as royalty. This was Cherokee land at one time, before Asheville was ever here. And the climate change started then. Because the Cherokee people, we just believed that we were just given here to take care of this land. It was a gift and an honor to do so. And why is it that right now we're standing here listening where there's other people over here cheering? Why is there a division? Why? Why can't we all be standing in one moment? Look at this building right here. People getting ready to invest thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on land that was so sacred at one time no one would even walk up here without permission. That's climate change. The climate started to change from how we started to honor the earth and everything we've been given in this moment. What about that? The simplicity of life. I appreciate each and every person that has come up to this microphone in this moment, but can we reach further back? Can we go back and get barefoot on this land? When people say grounded, oh, you don't know, what does that mean? You know what? Take your shoes off, get barefoot, and just plant your feet in the earth and just listen for a moment. Just shut up long enough to listen. Quit asking questions. Quit filling that busy mind. And just for a moment, can we just stand silently in the moment that we express to other people, oh, I just love quiet woods, I just love a quiet river. You know what? For just a moment, can we truly put our bare feet in the water and just shut up? Because to me and my people and our prophecy of the seventh generation, that's the simplicity it's going to take. Not the complicity of figuring out what's going on politically right now. We're never going to figure that out because there's too many opinions. But in this moment when you're standing here listening, how do we turn the energy around to work for us instead of upsetting us? Instead of moaning and groaning about what's going on in the world and our government today, what are we going to do in our hearts that we know what is morally correct to support this moment? And it all starts here on sacred ground of my people. I'm a full-blooded member of the Eastern Band of Cherokees, a people that lived on this land before Asheville was ever Asheville, or Buncombe County was ever Buncombe County. And this is where we buried our people so they could go straight home to the blessedness of the life we lived here on this earth. So how do we, as this community right now, come back to that? Don't get distracted by the news. Don't get distracted by the politics. There's things going on in this earth that are being neglected that we need to be paying attention to. Not CNN News, not Fox News. There's forests burning. There are people dying. That's climate change. The climate of peacefulness has changed. So instead of the 1980s or whatever politics you're accustomed to, can we take it back to the beginning and really understand the roots of where it comes from, instead of making it up right now based upon the opinions of people? Because in my opinion, where we as a civilization messed up was when we started making God a human. Spirit is earth. Spirit is water. Spirit is air. Everything you see around you. We are God. I hope. Go Tar Heels.
That was a truly moving experience. Thank you, Yona. Thank you. Let's thank him one more time. Our second speaker is Shane McCarthy, and he is a member of the Sunrise Movement Asheville, an Asheville native and an environmentalist. He is helping his community by weatherizing low-income houses through the Energy Savers Network, teaching beginner cooking classes, and organizing neighborhood litter cleanups. He graduated summa cum laude from NC State University in civil engineering and works as a construction manager. Pretty cool dude, I think. Let's hear what he has to say.
Hey everyone, can you hear me? All right. So, I want to start out by asking, how many of you were here earlier today around noon? Yeah, so earlier today, Sunrise Movement and Community Roots and other organizations organized a really awesome moment. And it was just incredible. We gathered right here where we're standing with about 300 people, and we marched down that street, down to City Hall. We took over Pack Square, and we had the youth tell us what they're doing about climate change and how it's affecting their lives. And then we finished off by staging a die-in. And what that meant was everyone in the audience laid down for 11 minutes on the ground to symbolize the 11 years we have left to turn around our energy system if we're going to avoid the worst effects of climate change. And that was such a powerful moment. So I just want to thank all the awesome people who organized that and participated in that. So, I'm a member of the Sunrise Movement chapter in Asheville, and I'm going to tell you more about the Sunrise Movement in a few minutes. But first, let's talk about why we are here today. Because today we are part of the biggest action on climate change ever in our history. Because all around the world, in 150 countries, people are rising up, walking out of school, walking out of work, and disrupting business as usual. We're disrupting business as usual because our generation's survival is at stake. Because young people have to live in fear of their future. Because our elected officials have failed us. At the head of this movement is a girl named Greta Thunberg. Greta is a Swedish climate activist who is just 16 years old. Last year, for 3 weeks, Greta skipped school to sit on the steps of the Swedish parliament and protest their inaction on climate change. At first it was just her. She was just sitting on the steps of her government, all alone. And then people started to pay attention. She got in the news, and people started to join in. And after a few months, she had inspired 20,000 students to strike in 270 cities. And today, she is leading the biggest youth-led mobilization ever to take place. So that's the power that one dedicated person can have. Because when young people show up, when young people care, and when young people demand action, adults start listening. So let's talk about what Greta is fighting for. Scientists at the UN tell us that we have 11 years left to transform our economy away from fossil fuels to avoid climate catastrophe. We need big systemic changes to fight these problems. And our politicians could solve these problems if they wanted to, but they're failing to act. And some of them are actively working against us, like Donald Trump, who just killed California's clean car standards. This is happening while we're seeing the devastation that the climate crisis is causing. The climate crisis is here. Hurricane Dorian was in the top 5 hurricanes ever, and it practically demolished 2 islands in the Bahamas. Storms like that are becoming more and more common because of rising sea temperatures. And right here in Asheville, last year's rainfall broke the all-time record. And it had more than double the rain of an average year. This caused extensive flooding and damaged our roads and homes. That's why this crisis demands action. By failing to act, our elected leaders are stealing our future. Now we know that they're not going to come and save us. It's up to us to rise up, to hold their feet to the fire, and make them listen. And that's why we're here today. That's why we launched a worldwide strike. Because when millions of people walk out of school on the same day, our governments have to listen. They can't ignore that. When people are striking from Amazon, from Google, and from Microsoft, those companies have to listen. And history has shown us that when millions of people show up and take to the streets, change happens. The people in power cannot ignore what we're doing today. So we've got their attention, and they're going to hear this. We demand a Green New Deal to end our dependence on fossil fuels by 2030. We demand environmental justice because people deserve equal access to clean air, water, and jobs, no matter what color their skin is and no matter where they grow up. And we demand protection for our forests, for our oceans, and the plants and animals that we share this planet with. Today is the start of achieving those goals, but we have to keep the pressure on. That means holding politicians accountable. No matter if it's our president, the governor, or your city council, their job is to protect our interests and protect our future. And if they're not doing that, we're going to vote them out. So at the start of the speech, I said I was with the Sunrise Movement, and I'm going to tell you more about what we are doing to make that happen. The Sunrise Movement is a national, youth-led movement to fight the climate crisis. We spent the last year putting constant pressure on politicians and the media to treat climate change like the crisis it is. As a result, we had the presidential candidates discuss climate policy for 7 hours on primetime TV. That's the first time like that anything has ever happened. The Green New Deal used to be a fringe idea, but thanks to our sit-in at Nancy Pelosi's office, it's now a household name with support from presidential candidates. So that's what we've been doing nationally, and we're working just as hard right here at home. At the Asheville City Council meeting on August 26th, we called on our city's leaders to declare a climate emergency and commit our city's resources before it's too late. Because we need to act now. Our future depends on what we do in just the next few years. Right now, the city's plan to reduce emissions will only reduce our fossil fuel consumption by less than 1% by 2030. That is not good enough. We need a true 100% renewable energy commitment and a Green New Deal for Asheville. That's why we marched earlier today. That's why we marched to City Hall and staged that die-in on Pack Square. Because we need action now. And if our elected officials are not going to help us, they need to get out of our way. I'm not just talking about putting solar panels on roofs. I'm talking about a thriving public transportation system, energy conservation programs, locally generated renewable energy built by living wage employees, preserving our urban tree canopies, and fighting the monopoly that Duke Power has on our energy system. So in Asheville, we're going to keep the pressure on the city. We're going to keep fighting Duke Energy to end their monopoly because they have the largest power monopoly of the country. And we're going to keep organizing strikes like we did today until the presidential election next year. So we hope you want to get involved and help us fight for our future. And we have a ton of ways for you to help. Our table is right over there, and we're going to have some people coming around soon with flyers. So next week we have a big opportunity. It's a training summit for all the Sunrise members in the South region. It's going to happen in Nashville, Tennessee. We're going to network and learn about the skills of organizing and activism. And then we're going to participate in another mass direct action there in Knoxville, like we did today. So, please talk to one of us, come join us, and thank you all so much for being here, and thank you for being on the right side of this fight and helping us fight for our future.
That was Shane with the Sunrise Movement, telling us all kinds of great stuff. Thank you so much, Shane. Our next speaker is Lucia Ibarra. She works at the Dogwood Alliance as an outreach program manager. Her environmental and wildlife biology work has taken her all over the country, as well as Africa and Mexico. She has worked with several governmental agencies as a biologist and public affairs. Lucia holds a master's degree in leadership studies with a concentration in organizational psychology from the University of San Diego, in addition to a bachelor's in wildlife habitat management from Arizona State University. Her passion for preservation inspired her to develop a video blog, The Wetland Wanderer, where she explores the interconnections of preserving wetland forests, climate change, and community justice. Let's give her a nice warm welcome.
Well, thank you so much for this warm welcome. I want to say also thank you so much for this organization, because actually they brought all these beautiful maple trees for all of you guys to take home. So I don't know how many are there, but it's for you guys to take. 100! Woo woo! So thank you, Daniel. So you can hear my accent. I'm from Mexico. I work for Dogwood Alliance, an amazing organization. Amazing organization that focuses on forest protection and connects the dots with climate change and community justice. And I'm so grateful to be here in Asheville. I'm so grateful to live near to the forest. When I see forest, I see a place of beauty. I see a place of wonder, a place that can provide me with clean air, clean water, a place that safeguards me for natural disasters. But in the other hand, I see a place that is being destroyed in alarming rates. Even when the study says that industrial logging is a major source of green gases emission and is making climate change worse. And yet, our leaders are not taking bold actions in this time of climate crisis. Our forest is one of our best tools that we have for climate change. It's one of our best allies. And you're probably asking, wait, why forest? Well, forests absorb carbon from the atmosphere, sequester carbon from the atmosphere, and they store it in their trees, in the soil, and keep it there until they die. And they keep it out of the atmosphere. We are losing one of our best tools to industrial logging. We are losing one of our best tools for sequestering carbon to plantations. When we cut our trees, we release carbon to the atmosphere. And that is dangerous and irresponsible. What it says, the Paris Agreement is telling us that we all need to work together to diminish or keep it or temperatures from rising toward the end of the decade. The PCC report is telling us that we need to cut emissions, and yet the southern forest is being logged in alarming rate. Again, we're losing our forests to industrial logging. We're losing our best tool to sequester carbon. We need to take bold actions and really tell our leaders that we need to leave forests standing. That we need to leave forests standing and let them do what they do best, which is sequester carbon. We are losing also our forests to transformation of plantations. Let me tell you something. Plantations are not forests. What happened is when they come in, they cut our natural forests, and then they replace it with plantations. Guess what happened? The biodiversity is lost. And actually, the absorption of carbon lessened. Studies have shown that actually with plantations leave standing, actually sequester 50% less carbon than natural forests. What we want to do, we need to tell our leaders that we need action that matches what we have right now, a climate crisis. We need to wake up. We need to wake up and really see the reality that we are in a climate crisis. We need to wake up and face that we must transition from an extractive economy to non-extractive economy. An economy that actually is friendly with climate, a climate-friendly practices. That's what we need. An example of a friendly climate practice is already happening here in South Carolina. The city of Conway in South Carolina added or bought 155 acres of riverfront land to conserve it in order to mitigate efforts for flooding. That's moving forward, people. That's taking action. We can do this. We need to take action. We need to tell our leaders that we need bold action and need to protect our best tool to sequester carbon, which is forests. We can do this. Let's stand all together. Let's be united. Let's not be in silos. Because unity makes a strong voice. Let's be one. Let's stand for our youth. Let's stand for our forests. Let's stand for our planet. And let's stand for our future.
Lucia with the Dogwood Alliance, everybody. Okay, our next speaker is Scott Hardinieri. He is a dad, a partner to Becca, and cares deeply about people and God's planet. He's an ordained minister pastor with the Christian Church Disciples of Christ. He has a Master of Divinity and a diploma in the Art of Spiritual Direction from San Francisco Theological Seminary. Scott learned and served in the vulnerable cloud forest of Monteverde, Costa Rica, before his role at the Mountain True, supporting faith communities as the director of the Creation Care Alliance of Western North Carolina. Scott also works nationally as the Associate Minister for Green Chalice, a non-denominational effort to care for God's creation, supporting, encouraging congregational leadership in the areas of carbon neutrality and resilience. Let's welcome him.
I begin with gratitude for this place and for all of you and for the organizers of this event and for the organizers of the march and die-in this afternoon. Deep gratitude for the creatures of this planet and for the web of life that we are a part of. I'm very grateful also for Greta. That's just an automatic signal to yell and scream. She's amazing, and the work that she has done, and all of the climate warriors and peacemakers that we are holding hands with now over the past decades. We know many of the names: Bill McKibben, Otis Moss, Catherine Hayhoe from the NAACP, Jackie Patterson, and I will say Pope Francis is doing a pretty good job around climate. Can we hear from the Pope? Like the Pope. 2 days ago, I was in Minneapolis with a set of friends and was holding a 6-month-old baby, Eleanor. As I held her, I was lucky enough for her to fall asleep in my arms, and this doesn't happen very often, but I could gaze into her closing eyes and could hear her breath next to my heart as I swayed near her mom during a conference. And I was having flashbacks about my own children and the reversal of role, not only when I was putting them asleep, but when they would wake me up. When they would wake me up. And so sometimes it looked like jumping on the bed on Christmas morning. They would wake me up. Sometimes it looked like when they were laughing at me because I had fallen asleep in the chair in the living room. Sometimes it was an elbow when I was reading to them when they were small to remind me to get back to the story. And other times it was a hand to my cheek, gently pressed, whispering, "Wake up, Dad. Wake up, Dad. Wake up, Dad." And I would wake up and continue the story. We are being invited to wake up by our children. Whether it's abruptly or it's taken a long time, whether it's with a gentle hand on your face or with some sort of action, we are being woken up. We can see that this is not just a climate crisis or an economic crisis or a social crisis or a food crisis or a water crisis or a race crisis or a poverty crisis. This is a spiritual crisis. As we engage this from the faith community and beyond, more and more deeply, we can see the interconnections that you have heard about already and that you will hear about more today. That climate change is deeply connected to food production and the way we consume. It's deeply connected to racism, to poverty, to violence, to prayer, to worship, to policy, and to money. I will give a shout out to the International Day of Peace, which is happening tomorrow. So I invite you to check that out as we look at how we might live in a climate without violence and war. In my spiritual tradition, at our best, we seek to deeply listen, to act intentionally, and to love abundantly. We follow this tenet around loving our neighbor as ourselves, and climate change threatens the ability to love our neighbor in 1,000 different ways. And so, as we listen and act and love, I wonder if you could help me with this. So, whenever I say listen and hold my hand up to my ear, would you recall back listen? Would you say that? 1, 2, 3. That was pretty good. Let's try it again. 1, 2, 3. All right. Act on the count of 3. I'm going to do this, I guess. 1, 2, 3. Good. And then love will be a hand over the heart. 1, 2, 3. Nice. So the first one. We need to listen to grief and pain, particularly with our most vulnerable populations, our coastal communities, our farmers that are facing drought, our young and old, those who are migrating from violence, dusty croplands, or rising seas. In particular, we need to listen to communities of color who have often been inflicted with snarling highways, coal plants, incinerators, factory farms, coal ash ponds, and toxic dumps. You may know that in Warren County, that community rose up against the designation of one of their landfills to receive toxic soil. They rose up against that, and through their efforts and a collaboration with the United Church of Christ denomination, there was released a landmark study called the Toxic Wastes and Race Study in the United States back in 1980, helping to birth the environmental justice movement. We need to listen also to creatures' voices who are being diminished. You heard from the Extinction Rebellion. You'll hear more and more about the creatures' voices who are being diminished. In my faith tradition, that is a sin, to diminish those that might praise and illumine God's presence. Oh, I guess that was really... Sorry, you want to take a pause? I can continue. My voice was not diminished right there. Yes, wake up. We also need to listen to our children. The breath in our cities of our children are being labored with asthma from heat and pollution. In New Delhi,
just today, in these past 24 hours, when they were protesting and rallying, the children in India chanted, "I want to breathe clean." We need to listen to Greta and the millions of children who are saying that the cost of inaction is too great a burden to bear, who have rightfully and quietly stepped out of their classrooms into the streets and halls of power to reflect the immorality of our climate complacency. We need to listen to our children. We need to listen to wisdom as well, to the scientists who are helping to cure cancer, grow more resilient crops, build energy efficiency and into our homes and cars. They're developing amazing smartphones and cool apps. They're saying that our climate is changing due to human activity, and they're saying that there is still more time. We might listen to our spiritual wisdom traditions, the voices of old and new, those written, oral, and embodied. And I know there are people of faith here from spiritual communities. They might help you find a spiritual community if you're interested in finding a community of conscience or church or synagogue. Let's listen to our own hearts as we begin to discern how we might engage in this climate catastrophe, listening to your own heart for what is breaking it. What is breaking your heart? There are 100 different things that you might engage in. As you feel your heart breaking, you might listen to that in a new way, to say, that is where I want to exert my energy, because you cannot do it all. Also, how is your heart mending? What are ways that you find life and healing? Where do you go to the forest? Where do you read poetry? This is soul-crushing work, my friends. This is soul-crushing work, my friends. You cannot do it alone. You cannot do it without Sabbath and rest for your heart. In the Jewish tradition, the Sabbath is a stepping out of business as usual. It's a stepping out of business as usual. It is reorienting toward right relationship with creation, with soil, with food, with God, and with our neighbors. It's reorienting. Some of you may have heard that Judith Glipson came to town a few weeks ago. She is a type A personality. She says that. She's detail-oriented, she is driven, she's amazing, and yet she sought after some Sabbath time. Some time of pause in her regular routine. And out of that pause, out of that deep listening, she was able to have an epiphany to create a climate concert. Because she is an amazing cellist. She did not say to herself, when she had this epiphany about the urgency of climate change, that she wanted to learn more about climate science, or she wanted to start a social media campaign, or she wanted to learn something new. She said to herself, the urgency is now. I have particular gifts and skills that I can use right in this moment, and I will use them. So she picked up her cello, which, by the way, is a 300-year-old tree, and she began to sing music to people to wake them up about climate change, using Bach and using climate science combined in these concerts. So she learned how to, it's act. 1, 2, 3. So after we listen, Judith did this amazing thing. I know that we are joining this rally because we're growing impatient with the climate inaction of Raleigh, D.C., and New York City. Yes, I know patience is a virtue, but come on. As we are encouraged in our action, and we're encouraging actions in systems, we are seeing action right now in cities, states, nonprofits, businesses, shout out to B Corps, and faith communities. More and more faith communities and denominations are beginning to They are listening and learning from all of you and from one another. They are waking up to solar panels, to planting trees, to the education of women and girls globally. They are waking up to plant rich diets, to preaching, to praying, to holding funerals for the victims of climate violence. They are waking up to protesting, to biking, to divesting. What, I wonder, is your way to What is within your skill set, your gifts, your passions? What are your resources? What are the people that you have around you? Not all of it. You can't do all of it. Just do your part. But after you listen, after you tend to your heart, you might go ahead and... As we listen and act, we are also invited to do so rooted in this. That is the reason for all of this, which is love. One more time, 1, 2, 3. Love. Oh, thank you. A little act of love. And so with the listening and with the acting, we have an opportunity to love in a new way. Because that is why we're all here, isn't it? In 1960, the student leaders of the sit-in movement at Litchcouters met in Shaw University in Raleigh, North Carolina. Ella Baker helped lead the meeting as they created a purpose for the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. As they planned to disrupt business as usual, they declared that they wanted a social order of justice permeated by love. Aren't we here because of love? Because our love of the tiny fingers and toes of baby Eleanor for future generations of humans and creatures, for our neighbors, our family, for ourselves. Aren't we here because of our love? For the splashing creeks and rivers, the cathedral of forests surrounding us, the sacred mountains, it is love. This listening and acting is rooted in love. Now, Piney Mountain United Methodist Church is a congregation of about 30 in worship, very small church. They are in a district that is not happy to talk about climate change all the time, and yet they had a deep love for their neighbors. They handed out, in wagons, they pulled around their neighborhood 1,200 LED light bulbs to help their neighbors out. They filled wheelbarrows with produce from their gardens, and they went door to door and said, hey, we love you. They saved their neighborhood $70,000 if they screwed in the light bulbs over the next 10 years. Yeah, that's possible. That's about 1,000 pounds of carbon, 1,000 pounds of carbon for the planet that they offset. They offered prodigious produce and sanctified LEDs. We are asking our leaders to listen and act now on behalf of love, but we're not waiting for them. We are not waiting for them. Let them see our courage. Let them see our deep listening, our action, and our love. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Scott. We tried to update our sound system. We honestly thought there would be maybe 100 people that would be coming if we were lucky, and it's far beyond any of our expectations. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your patience. Our next speaker is Evan Kuzo. He's got some fans already here. About to get some more, I'm sure. Evan Kuzo is an assistant professor of STEM education at UNC Asheville. He is an atmospheric and environmental scientist by training and survived Boston's record-setting winter while a postdoctorate associate at MIT. Evan's research interests cover a broad range of air quality issues, from pollutant formation and public health to regulatory decision-making and climate change. Once upon a time, Evan taught middle school math as a member of the Mississippi Teacher Corps. He enjoys hiking with his dog, cooking, traveling, reading, and other sorts of things that make him seem interesting and well-rounded. Let's see all the interesting things that he has to say. Let's welcome Scott. Let's welcome Evan.
Thanks, Daniel, and thanks to all of you for coming out in support of climate action. I know it's a real hardship to spend a beautiful Friday evening in downtown Asheville. I'm sure you'll find something to do later. But I especially want to thank and recognize all the young people and students that are here. Our hopes largely rest in your hands. Generations before you have failed to meaningfully address climate change mitigation. But I truly believe that this time is different, and I wouldn't be here if I felt otherwise. So my name is Evan Kuzo. I'm an environmental scientist. I've studied various aspects of the atmosphere for over 10 years, and I'd like to think that I have a pretty good grasp of the evidence that demonstrates that climate change is caused by humans. I'm sure many of you do too. I'm also aware of the climate impacts that we can expect if we don't reduce our carbon emissions. Again, I think I'm probably in good company on that point. And finally, I know how to solve climate change, but I don't think that the solution will be a surprise to any of you. We need to stop burning things and stop cutting down our tropical forests. None of this is new. None of this is a surprise, and none of this is my great discovery as a scientist. It's been over a century since scientists understood the effects of increased fossil fuel combustion emissions, and it's been at least half a century since some scientists and policymakers sought to do something about it. And yet, here we are. Why haven't we made progress? We've solved environmental problems before. You remember leaded gasoline? I don't. I was born after that. Do you remember the ozone hole? Most of you don't. We solved that problem. So what makes climate change different? Why haven't we solved that yet? And I think we need to start there. We need to answer that question before we can engage in meaningful climate advocacy work. Climate pollution is not generated by just one sector of our economy, the way leaded gasoline and CFCs were. Climate pollution is created by the very actions we need to survive. Our food systems, our residences, our transportation methods, these all emit carbon. Our energy infrastructure, our livelihoods, our pleasures, these emit carbon too. Solving climate change is not about small efforts on the margins of society. It is society. And when we understand that climate change is not a social problem, or is not a technical problem, that it's a social problem, we can begin to rethink the climate conversation. So let's think for a minute about the conversation we've been having up to this point. What are our strategies? Is it to point out that atmospheric carbon dioxide levels are the highest they've been in at least 1 million years? Do you reference record-setting temperatures and an increase in heat waves? How about erratic natural disasters, ocean acidification, Arctic sea ice declines and glacial retreat? Do these sound familiar? Sure they do. But we're not the only ones that have heard of them. Folks that reject the evidence for human-caused climate change have heard them too. So our main strategies revolve around, 1, hey, look at this graph, the line goes up. 2, look at this new satellite image of the Earth. And 3, our new climate model predicts a terrible future. And we've gotten nowhere with these strategies. We're throwing technical evidence at a social problem just like we would for a technical problem. We need a different strategy. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not suggesting that facts don't matter. I'm just suggesting that they matter less than we think they do. I find that deeply unsettling, but I have to get over it. If I were to summarize in one word what's gone wrong with past climate communication efforts, I'd summarize it by saying distrust. Distrust has manifested itself in several areas. The first is the messenger. Who initiates the climate conversation matters, and it should change depending on the audience. Whether it's right or wrong, a young tatted up millennial wearing a Dismantle the Patriarchy t-shirt won't be accepted in some communities. To them, you represent someone who values the environment over the economy, a reduction in personal freedoms, and you want to tear down capitalism. Why should they listen to you? You, or at least the image they have of you, opposes everything that they stand for. We need trusted climate brokers. We need a CEO to talk to other CEOs. We need a Republican to talk to other Republicans. Very few people can move between these groups in today's divided times. So we also need a broad coalition and a diversity of climate communicators. The second area of distrust is the message. Assuming you are an acceptable messenger, and for some of you that is a big assumption, make sure you say the right thing. Is your audience part of the faith-based community? Don't make secular arguments. Are you talking to a fiscal conservative or a small government proponent? Discuss how a carbon tax internalizes the price of pollution and eliminates the need for heavy-handed government regulation. We should also be aware that climate change is still a distant problem for many. It happens to those people over there. Its impacts will be felt by other people's future generations, and not mine. The message needs to be tailored to the audience. Don't talk about sea level rise to someone in Iowa. Instead, ask them how they fared with this summer's floods. And don't emphasize impacts that may or may not harm them in the future. Engage with them in the present. Now, a third area of distrust is the solution, or the solutions that we come up with to solve climate change. Some of these solutions require an active government that restricts the allowable amount of pollution. These solutions might also smooth out inequalities and inequities in society, and perhaps they could even go so far as to provide incentives for certain industrial practices or corporate behaviors. Sounds good, right? Well, no, it doesn't. It doesn't sound good if you believe in limited government. Those solutions are anathema to certain audiences. There is not a solution to climate change. Rather, there are many paths to a low-carbon future. If we stubbornly cling to a subset of policy solutions that are non-starters for groups of people, we won't get anywhere. I'm not arguing against a bold plan to tackle climate change that will also solve some of society's problems. What I'm saying is we need to recognize that we can have honest disagreements about how to restructure society. And if we let that disagreement prevent us from reaching our goal of reducing carbon emissions, we won't solve climate change. Now finally, I'd like to discuss the importance of framing climate change and its solutions. Even though climate change is a moral issue, it's not about morality to some people. Even though climate science is rock solid and supported by mountains of evidence, some people just don't care. Yet morality and facts are at the heart of most of our conversations about climate change. If you're honest with yourself, you've probably fallen for this trap before. I know I have. Sometimes moral indignation feels good. Calling a climate denier or a senseless consumer stupid or immoral it's cathartic. Yeah! Right? But it's not effective, and it's often counterproductive. So how should we frame climate change? First, it's not about costs. We've all heard how expensive decarbonizing our economy will be and the exorbitant costs of changing our agricultural practices, and there is truth in that. But accounting for climate action in these terms is disingenuous in two ways. First, it fails to account for the costs of inaction, and second, it doesn't capture the co-benefits of reducing greenhouse gas emissions. If we do nothing, costs go up. More intense hurricanes increase home insurance premiums. Erratic precipitation makes food more expensive. More frequent heat waves raises summer air conditioning costs. If the expense of action counts against us, the costs of inaction must be subtracted from them. But it's not just about avoided costs, it's also about the co-benefits we enjoy, the indirect good things that happen when we reduce carbon emissions. Imagine a world where we don't buy fuel. Once the initial infrastructure is built, all we need to pay for is the maintenance. So one co-benefit is reduced fuel and utility costs. That's not imaginary, it's real. Another co-benefit is improved public health. A consequence of reducing carbon emissions is a reduction in other pollutions that cause smog and acid rain. That means fewer hospitalizations, fewer missed days of school, and fewer missed days of work because of respiratory problems. Air pollution is responsible for millions of deaths around the world, globally, each year. What if we could drastically reduce urban air pollution at the same time that we're solving climate change? What is that worth? Is it quantifiable? Actually, it is. When we compare the industrial costs of the Clean Air Act from the 1970 and its subsequent amendments to the economic health benefits, it's not even close. Pollution reductions pay for themselves many times over. One last thing about framing. Why do environmentalists use the language of sacrifice? Don't eat meat, give up your car, travel less, consume less. Nobody wants to hear this. I don't want to hear this. And it's not a good communication strategy. So my challenge for you is to flip the script. How can we talk about climate rewards instead of climate sacrifices? What benefits will people enjoy from reducing carbon emissions? Here and now. If you can answer this question, or if you can frame your conversation about climate change around this question, then you're ready to engage in the conversation. And the world needs you to be ready.
I like the climate rewards rather than the climate sacrifice. That's a great paradigm that we can all shift into. All right, our last speaker of the evening is Anita Simha. She is a community ecologist and community organizer in Durham, North Carolina, so she's traveled a long way to be here. She's currently a graduate worker in ecology at Duke University, studying a longleaf pine ecosystem in the Sandhills. She is also committed to labor, climate, racial, and environmental justice. She serves as a proud member of Duke's Graduate Worker Union. She's on the board of Clean Water for North Carolina and is a co-chair of the North Carolina Poor People's Campaign Ecological Justice Committee. When she is not crunching numbers or facilitating meetings, she likes to read young adult science fiction and go on very slow runs. Let's welcome her up as she makes her way quickly to the stage.
Thank you so much. I really like what Professor Kuzo said just now. This is not a technological problem, it's a social problem. That means that a solar panel isn't going to save us, only we can save us. That's why in the Poor People's Campaign we really like to center people who are most directly impacted by the issues that we're talking about. But before we get into it, can we do a quick energy check? How are y'all feeling? Okay. If you're fed up, can I hear you say fed up? If you're fired up, can I hear you say fired up? Fed up? Fired up? Fed up? Fired up? Alright, when I say what do we want, you say clean air. What do we want? Clean air. What do we want? Clean air. When I say what do we want, you say clean water. What do we want? Clean water. What do we want? Clean water. When I say what do we want, you say climate justice. What do we want? Climate justice. What do we want? Climate justice. What do we want? Climate justice. When do we want it? Now. When do we want it? Now. Do we want it later? No. When do we want it? Now. All right, thank y'all. Thank you for indulging me. My name is Anita Simha. I work with the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for a moral revival. The Poor People's Campaign is working to end systemic racism, structural poverty, the war economy, and ecological devastation. Yeah. All of which are tied together by this twisted moral narrative about who deserves to live a full life. And all of these injustices are connected. So when we talk about a clean energy future, we must also fight for a future where 9,000 people in North Carolina aren't homeless anymore, because everyone has a home. When we talk about a future for our children, we must also mean a future where ICE can't snatch 230 North Carolinians away from their families because ICE doesn't exist anymore. Well, Arctic ice exists. ICE, the government agency, does not exist. And when we say the time to act is now, we must also mean to act for a future where 500,000 people in our state aren't denied Medicaid by the legislature, because everyone deserves health care. The transition must be just, y'all, or it will not be a transition at all. It's time we start seeing connections between all of these issues. We can't just say, you fight for Indigenous rights and I'll fight for labor, or you fight for racial justice and I'll fight for divestment. We need to build a strong coalition movement. In the campaign, we call it moral fusion politics, to take on power structures that care more about short-term profit than people's basic right to life and dignity. And when we come together, we are powerful, y'all. When we come together, we win. And when we come together, it becomes really easy to poke holes in the arguments of all these huge corporations and the politicians who serve them. Because here's the thing, when they argue about political will, we need to talk about systemic racism and the fact that 23 states, including North Carolina, have passed voter suppression laws limiting the black vote, taking rights away from black people while 68% of black folks live within 30 miles of a coal-fired power plant. Hell no! When they argue about the economy and jobs, we need to talk about poverty and the fact that farm workers deserve a living wage and a union. The California drought in 2015 led to the loss of 10,000 farm worker jobs. And workers don't just need a job, they need protection and dignity. And our climate action must afford that. When they say, there's just no money in the budget this year, we need to talk about the war economy and the fact that over half of the federal discretionary budget, goes towards the military, while only 18% goes to social programs. When we recognize these connections, we can start changing the conversation. For example, around the Atlantic Coast Pipeline. We know it's not actually bringing money into the 8 counties it's routed through, 7 of which are disproportionately poor and black and indigenous. Dominion, no, it's making its money off of Wall Street by showing investors that it's growing by building more and bigger infrastructure. We know no one needs this dirty fuel, and we know they're not providing North Carolinians with long-term, sustainable jobs. That changes the argument. It's not about jobs versus the environment like they want us to think. It's about labor rights and racial equity and indigenous sovereignty and public health versus corporate greed. Coming together is how we win. And it's essential because the environmental and climate justice work we're doing in North Carolina is some of the most important work happening in the country right now. And it's possible that I'm biased, but it's incredible what we're up against, but also what we're demanding. Because we are demanding, can y'all just say, we are demanding. Yeah, an end to dirty fuel like Enviva's wood pellet plants, the Atlantic Coast Pipeline, and the Mountain Valley Pipeline. We are demanding. Just recovery from climate disasters like Matthew, Florence, and Dorian. We are demanding. Democratization of energy out of Duke Energy's hands and into ours. And we are demanding an end to disproportionate pollution in poor communities of color like hog waste, chicken waste, and coal ash. Demanding all of that, that's a lot. There is too much at stake for us not to be doing more. But what does it mean to do more? Well, the Poor People's Campaign says that MORE stands for mobilizing, organizing, registering, and educating. How to hit you with the acronym real quick. Can you say mobilize? Mobilize. Organize. Register. Educate. That's right. We are fighting for justice and peace by all the means we have. That means that our struggle begins at the ballot box, but it cannot end there. We must commit to civic engagement to end the social ills, not lower, not lessen, end the social ills that prevent people from having a living wage, full voting rights, affordable health care, and a climate future. So before I leave you, quickly, here are 4 things you can do to do more. 1, most obvious, vote, register everyone you know to vote. We must engage in the kind of voting that cares about poor and low-wealth people, the sick, immigrants, indigenous folks, the environment, war, or peace over war. All of these things are climate issues. 2, go further and join the movement. That means joining an organization that is doing grassroots work in your community. A bunch of them have tables right here, y'all. We need to organize if we are going to win. 3, join us in Greensboro on September 30th for the campaign's More Tour. We'll be there for a Moral March and Mass meeting on September 30th. You can visit Leslie over here to sign up for details. And finally, June 20, 2020, it is going down. Can you say June 20? June 20. 2020. 2020. That's right, y'all. June 20, 2020, the campaign is holding a Moral March on Washington. Hundreds of thousands of people are coming together from all the United States, Puerto Rico. We're demanding moral action on climate justice, racial justice, economic justice, and peace. Again, we have a table, so please sign up for updates on that. This incredible rally is the start of something also incredible, y'all, but this rally itself is not the work. But if we all go back to our communities and organize, then I know that we will be right back here real soon, this time for a victory rally. Last thing, this incredible Aboriginal activist named Lilla Watson has this incredible quote. She says, "If you have come here to help me, then you are wasting your time. But if you have come because your liberation is bound up with mine, then let us walk together." That is the root of moral fusion politics, y'all. People are coming together to build a movement because we all need to be free. Our work is powerful because we are led by folks directly impacted by these injustices, and all people of conscience are engaging in a movement that is rooted in our deepest constitutional, moral, and religious values. So we better get to work, walk together, and start doing more. We started off saying that we were fed up and fired up, but who here is feeling ready to go? So let me hear you say fired up. Ready to go. Fired up. Ready to go. Climate justice now.
Let's all thank Anita for traveling so far to tell us so many great things. Thank you. Y'all, our rally is coming to a close. As we're finishing up here, I do want to say, you know, it takes a lot to organize something like this. We're so happy so many of you people showed up. I want to thank Kelsey Hall, who's been working behind the scenes as a logistics and communication powerhouse through this entire thing. Google Docs, emails, phone calls, it all happened. She made it happen. We want to thank her for that. Who here is feeling a little less alone? Who here feels like they learned about a cool group that they can go be involved in? Right. And who feels proud of themselves for being a part of history today? The biggest protest, the biggest action ever on this important topic. Before you leave tonight, if you would like to post about this on social media, we would encourage you to do so. We made a list of all the hashtags so we can kind of make sure everyone's on the same page and really get those numbers out there as much as possible. I also want to encourage you, if you can, if you have a place for it, pick up these maple trees. I've been growing these all summer. There's 100 of them for you. And if you'd like to take a photo, we have Garrett Martin with Venture Life Films. He's our co-chair, and he can take your picture with it, with this awesome sign. So as these trees grow over the first 20 to 25 years of their life, they sequester 400 pounds of carbon. So you're making a difference. You're making a real positive change. So you can come up, get one of the prettier trees of the bunch, have your picture taken, and post that to social media. And as we leave today, tree in hand, I would like us to think of these trees maybe as a reflection of ourselves. If we're put in a clean environment, if we get enough sunshine, absorb the right nutrients,
and remember to stay hydrated. We too can grow up and become powerful vehicles for positive change. So thank you so much everyone for participating. You're great. Come get your picture taken.